It's Florida Daily TV, brought to you by FloridaDaily.com. For all your news on politics, business, and education, it's FloridaDaily.com. Now, here's your host, Ed Dean.
Welcome to another edition of Florida Daily TV, brought to you by FloridaDaily.com. I am your host, the publisher, Ed Dean. We got a lot of issues to get to today with our panel of guests. Let me introduce former federal prosecutor, still a lawyer, by the way, former federal prosecutor, worked in the W. White House, and he's currently the CEO of K9sForWarriors.org, but he's also Jacksonville City Councilman, who also contributes to FloridaDaily.com. Our good friend, Councilman Rory Diamond, back with us as she is every week. You can hear her on NPR Radio here in the state of Florida. Also, the political reporter for the daily.com, Claire Goforth. So now we're into another issue. I'm going to start with you since you're the elected official here. We are now into another round of talks of stimulus money. Remember, it was the Democrats that came out back a couple of months ago that said $3 trillion. In fact, progressives in the Democratic Party said, even some here in Florida, that $3 trillion wasn't enough. Let's go with $4 trillion. The White House has said we're going to list out a number of $1 trillion. It's all over the map out here. And now they've come out and besides funding more for the arts, I'm going to play one of the clips here. They have now come out and say that maybe the issue of bailing out states again should be involved. Let's go to clip number 4.
On this particular issue of states and cities, because I think it's true that a lot of that $1 trillion that Nancy Pelosi wants for the states and the cities involve bailing them out for things that happened long before the virus ever caused economic problems.
That's from the Fox Business Network, David Asman. So to me, this is a fascinating debate because it's almost the definition of is. COVID didn't hit every part of Florida. You had many areas of Northwest Florida, even to today, they're ready to open up school tomorrow. And you got South Florida that sits back and says, nah, it's much worse down there. So when the Democrats come out and say, we want to take care of the states and the cities, by the way, in Florida, the question is, well, when do you determine when the pandemic started, which was pre-COVID? This is a messed up thing.
This is clearly an attempt by the Democrats in D.C. to take advantage of the crisis. I mean, It makes no sense at all. All right, so I get that you want to help cities and states who are spending money on COVID response. Absolutely. It's just like a hurricane. We need help with hurricane response. But to try and bail out their bad spending decisions over the last 5 years makes no sense at all. It's essentially taking money from people like Florida that's doing it the right way, in Jacksonville, which has a balanced budget, and trying to force it, to save these places that just didn't do the right decisions, didn't financially plan correctly.
We are talking about pensions for cities here in the state of Florida. I understand nationwide, but here in the state of Florida, hey, I need to get my pension taken care of, knowing that they and their congressman or congresswoman can get them a sweaty wad of bailout money inside a stimulus package to save that local city's unions or whatever. My question is, first off, how's the government going to even have accountability knowing what the states or feds may spend? I mean, we had over 1 million people, dead people, getting stimulus checks. So, I mean, that's what happens when you rush it out. So first off, how are you going to determine the feds here, Claire Goforth, that the city of Jacksonville, Miami, Orlando, or Tallahassee sat back and go, well, we've lost a lot of money on maybe property taxes. We've lost money on the sales tax. We need this to shore up due from COVID-related, but we may want to slide it a few months earlier to shore up a pension, which they may deem that was part of COVID-related.
But, I mean, doesn't that benefit the average citizen? Are we in a position where we're going to say, let's penalize Joe Blow on the street who works for the local firefighters, right, who's in a union, because the state government, the city government didn't spend their money properly? I mean, yeah, it doesn't really make sense to a lot of people to just go ahead and give these states a blank check, but the fact is letting them go into bankruptcy is going to hurt a lot of people. So while we can point fingers and say they didn't spend their money right, we also need to acknowledge the fact that putting them in bankruptcy is going to be a very bad thing.
Then what should be the alternative then?
What? I mean,
just bail them out?
Yeah, I would think that bailing them out is going to help a lot of people.
So, go ahead. So they can raise their own taxes. So the people who are benefiting from that city's, leadership can keep benefiting by have higher taxes. But our city has balanced budget, and we don't have the major problems from COVID that is affecting our pension. So I don't think we should have to raise taxes. And I don't think you should take our money, send it to D.C., and then bring it back down to Tampa and Miami. That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I mean, why not? Some people would argue that. I mean, there's a lot of tax revenue. Miami, which is called the Wall Street of the South. You've got many other areas in the state of Florida that are looking to bounce back when the economy comes back. Why not have them raise their own taxes? They can maybe bond it out. Maybe they can work out something with the state of Florida. Why not go down that route then?
I mean, local governments have proven they really don't have much of an appetite for raising taxes. So this is a way that you you can remove the accountability on the local level for people saying, hey, I don't want to, do you want to vote to raise taxes? Probably not.
No, I'm the first one to stop it.
Yeah, right? I mean, it doesn't play well the next time you run for election. It makes people mad.
So let's play one more clip here.
You know, bailout programs that Democrats are proposing, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, want the next round of these trillion-dollar bailouts and financial support to go to the states and to cities and municipalities to support them. Mitch McConnell said, you know, for some of these states, bankruptcy procedures might be the better option.
Let me talk. We had an article in Florida Daily that I did a couple months back about who is getting stimulus money. I know the Florida Democratic Party, and that's fine with me. Hey, we want you to give a list of all the people that got PPP money, excluding themselves, but the people that got PPP money and all of this. We had done an article at FloridaDaily.com where a very credible artistrelief.org listed on their website that even if you're a female or a male making ceramic jewelry at the local flea market, quote, you don't even have to prove you got talent. Supply for a sweaty wad of money. What I'm saying is we're throwing so much, and by the way, we're Republicans as well, not just Democrats. We're throwing so much in here that remember that we want to fund the arts, the Kennedy and everything, all of the arts, and everything else out there. Should it not be just strictly COVID related here, Claire, or is it COVID related in the eye of the beholder of the elected official?
I mean, sneaking the arts into COVID relief bills is something that probably isn't going to be really palatable to a lot of people. But the Republicans have been trying to chip away at arts
the arts
funding.
got $70 million a few months ago.
And some of the greatest civilizations in world history put a lot of money into the arts. Right. People look at it, it's like just fluff, but it's more than that. There's that sense of civic pride and the benefit of having a great artistic community in the nation. So I don't know about putting it in COVID relief, but we really need to examine why we are trying. I mean, Donald Trump has been very clear about wanting to chip away at arts funding. He thinks that it's useless.
Is it more? I wonder if let me go before I go to you. More, which we talked about last week. It's more about the $600 extended unemployment. Is that what it's going to really nail down to?
I mean, that is more important to most people. I mean, the unemployed people across this country who have been suffering because of the pandemic because they're trying to do the right thing to flatten the curve. I think that we would rather not have them get evicted, have them living on the street, and just see the economy completely tank.
Okay, so I think the Republicans are going to cave in on this issue about the unemployment. They want to go. They originally, by the way, and it was the White House that also brought this up. $600 a week. That doesn't include what the states get. We have some Fed chairs out there in some of the regions that are saying, well, maybe we don't need to get rid of the $600 of unemployment till maybe the economy comes back at a unemployment rate of 3 to 5%. I mean, that could be 10 years down the road if that happens. So does that mean we continue to do this? My question to you, how important is this issue? It does drive up the debt and deficit. Do we need to extend the $600 a week, or as what we've talked about, and it's a very interesting issue, does it create an incentive for Florida people not to go back to work? Rory Diamond.
Well, look, anytime you give people money and they're not to work, then they're probably, if they can, they're going to choose not to work by and large. But the bigger issue is the November election. Okay, you can't have this conversation, honestly, until after this election because...
Why is that?
Yeah, because everyone in D.C. wants to get reelected. The best way to get reelected is
so it's going to happen. They're going to spend the $600.
Yeah, this is going to happen. So, all right, so let's imagine there is an election about to happen. What makes the most sense? Have some clear, objective guidelines so that we're not moving posts back and forth. Say, listen, at this rate, we need to start weaning people off of unemployment and get them back to work. And there is a number out there that makes sense. I don't think it's 3%, but it's higher than that. But
right.
We need to get there eventually. Who's
going to win on this argument? Let me start with you, Rory Diamond. Who's going to win this argument? You talked to a lot of the conservatives out there. They believe the party's going to cave in. But the question is, you've got limited liability that's being talked about, being thrown around. Both of you also as very well-known lawyers, you two, Rory. You've got limited liability. Let me play one of the clips here on the limited liability here.
Well, let me make it perfectly clear. The Senate is...
By the way, this is Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell wants to put this in an upcoming bill, and many Florida Democrats are against this. Here it is.
Well, let me make it perfectly clear. The Senate is not interested in passing a bill that does not have liability protection. I've been talking to business people all over the country. There's a good deal of fear about getting back to normal, knowing full well the lawsuits that are awaiting unless we address this issue to provide protection, litigation protection for those who've been on the front line, hospitals, doctors, nurses.
Now, let me start with you first. I understand. I mean, the Washington Post, I think it reported there was over 3,000 plus cases. Some have even said close to 4,000. You got a lot here in Florida. cruise lines, schools not reopening here. You got people that didn't like the lockdown that want to sue the governor. They want to sue the local municipality for keeping things shut down. Those may be a little bit more viable. Having said that, what is it when you go to sue a doctor? Like, hey, doc, my mom and dad, somebody unfortunately passed away with COVID out there. You guys could have done a better job. You didn't. We're going to sue you. Is that where these lawsuits are coming from in the state of Florida?
No, I think the biggest one you're going to have is just any business that opened. So you're going to get class actions based on employees who may have got sick because their boss said they had to come back to work.
Right.
And then you're going to have class actions of customers who went into, let's say, a mall or a store or whatever, say, oh, I got COVID. Just like we've had bars around Florida, right, where they're saying, well, I got it at your bar, so it's your fault. So without some sort of liability protection for these store owners, for the employers, we're going to have a crippled economy. Everyone's going to stop, especially if some of these lawsuits start to pay out. On the flip side, yeah, you're going to have to do some defensive medicine worries there. You have to make sure that every patient in the world can't sue their doctor because they were following the best protocol that they knew at the time.
Do you think Democrats, as a journalist, what are you hearing? Do you think Democrats will cave in on limited liability production or limited liability cases? Then again, I'm thinking to myself, aren't a lot of these state-related? How did the feds coming in here?
I mean, mostly they prefer federal court. That's how the feds come in. But I think the Democrats are going to cave because this bill is basically much ado about nothing.
Wait, you think the Dems? What area are the Dems going to cave in on?
On the tort reform, the liability
really?
thing, I think they're going to cave on that because, for one, most of these complaints, if you're looking at an employee complaining about their employer, they go through workman's comp. And if you're looking at a customer going into a business, if they are adhering to the practices at the time, there's no way they're going to win at court. So what is the point of this legislation? I think it's just to sort of make it sound like they're doing something good for business.
Go ahead.
No, I think there will be shakedown lawsuits. I mean, look, if I know anything,
no,
is that plaintiffs' lawyers are going to find creative ways to take public angst and turn it into money in their pocket when everybody else is going to lose, but the plaintiffs' lawyers will win.
But also the people will win.
Okay, there's another big area that we talked about. We talked about this last week that's been really underreported. One of the defense lawyers, I think we played the clip, where he says he thinks that the schools reopen. And by the way, some schools, it's different. We talk about this almost daily on this show and on my radio show and on our articles, that, again, in Franklin County or Liberty and in rural counties out there, their schools can open up. They don't have the COVID cases like South Florida. Listen, I'm all for, as the unions have said, which they're all over the map on the issue. No. Let the school districts decide. I'm all for that. But their lawsuit is blocking the school districts to decide. As many people aren't following that. So again, if South Florida has a worst case, they think they should open up September. Let them do that based on that, and let maybe Duval County and Orange County open up another time. But they say that the lawsuits are going to kind of happen, Claire, if kid comes down with COVID, comes down with flu-like symptoms, they didn't clean enough. Oh, wait a second. The teachers caught COVID, they're going to sue the school district. Is it inevitable the lawsuit's going to happen?
They probably will happen. I mean, this whole education issue is a mess, and we're about to send kids back to school in a couple of weeks when we're looking at the deaths in Florida are really alarming at this point. We're probably going to face a situation pretty soon.
Deaths among young people, young kids?
There were 2 teenagers that died.
Two out of how many? How many millions of children?
How many dead kids does it take, Ed?
Well, you tell me, the price versus keeping the economy open versus death. How do you justify that?
I'm sorry. You see that tiny coffin on the news, and you're going to see schools closing pretty fast.
Really? Tell me, 80+% of those that have died died in rest homes, and those with pre-existing conditions. 1,500 pediatricians, what is it, the American Pediatrician Group out there, came and said, we can reopen these schools, and they deal with kids.
There was another group that said we should not reopen these schools. It just depends on what you're doing at the local level, what the cases are locally. I mean, it's going to be really difficult to get six-year-olds socially distanced.
Hold on, but
come on.
We have more kids that die of the flu than of COVID, but we don't shut the schools down because of the flu.
Well, what doesn't make any sense is the Florida Teachers Association says, hey, no, we're going to file a statewide lawsuit and have statewide rules, and at the same time advocate for local people. It makes no sense.
Exactly.
Let each county make up their own mind. That each county, for the most part, has an elected school board, and those are the people responsible to the parents.
But they were responding to the governor and to the state government doing this sort of all one-size-fits-all mandate for schools, requiring them to go back.
Well, at some point you have to go back there. You can't keep them closed forever.
I mean, the school choice, I like. Listen, I like a guideline. If the state comes out and says, offer this and offer more of that, and as Governor DeSantis has said in the past, now if he's double standarding himself, then there needs to be something to be pointed out on that. He just said, I'm going to let the school districts decide. We at least want to set a guideline like CDC does and let the local school districts do what they do. But what I'm saying is one of our articles at FloridaDaily.com this week.
Ooh, shameless plug. I like it.
Yeah. Well, it's brought to you by FloridaDaily.com. It's one of the articles I done, my proper English here, was calling out as a newsworthy story of the teachers' unions because they said back, okay, we had cases of COVID in May and June, 2, maybe 5%, maybe not the largest. Then they now we have them down now before the storm. They're around 9%, and that could change. We had them a couple of days at 19. They've dropped. So it's amazing to see where all this goes. And then you've got some of these school board districts going, well, it's not safe enough to open. Well, Claire, my question is what was the difference 2 months ago with the advice of local unions that said it's okay to open, just make it more safe, face masks and gloves and shields? All you had, the difference was you just had a spike in cases. You still were going to protect schools no matter who was going to catch it or not. That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm a little confused about. They seem to be all over the map. If cases were going up, not as much as we've seen today, but you still had safety precautions no matter what, then why would you want to stop and limit the schools to open?
Because we know for a fact that being in an indoor environment for a long period of time is the #1 way to spread COVID.
Then you go to school choice, online schooling, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of districts are trying to do. And then the state came and was like, hey, no, you got to be open the whole time. I mean, it really just...
I think they offered both sides.
I think everybody is grappling with this historic crisis that we haven't seen in a century, and we're feeling our way blindly, trying to come to some sort of solution that's not going to end in dead teachers, dead superintendents, janitors, families of these kids, and kids themselves.
Did you see Nikki Fried? I got to give her credit. It was brilliant. She put out the, what was it, Be Smart Florida, whatever it's called.
Right.
She's trying to take the lead. She's out there saying the governor won't give me the time of the day.
She's out there running for governor.
Yeah, she's out there running for governor. And we got another article going to be coming out soon where the numbers show that I think the Democrats are going to hold on to the House. The Senate could be 50-50. I don't know yet. Biden is leading. But when you look at the internals of the poll, shutdowns, I'm just telling you, even though the Fox News poll, Biden is leading. But you talk about the shutdowns, nobody likes him. You got Nikki Fried out there talking, well, we should have shut down things. We reopened. Listen, with all due respect to the Agriculture Commissioner, if you think we open up too soon, then why don't you advocate shutting back down again?
Yeah, be honest about it, right? She's been inconsistent throughout this entire thing.
Yeah.
And just riding the waves of public interest in one thing.
No, wait, maybe you're right. Maybe Ashley's been consistent on this one. I don't know.
She's been a politician? Did you just say that?
Yeah, but not all politicians are that way. Some of us are just honest and do things the way we think it ought to be.
We found one. There he is.
But I mean, it really has turned out that way where, again, we're blaming all the deaths on Trump. Dr. Fauci, who all the left loves, and listen, I'm not one to throw Dr. Fauci under the bus, but he's been wrong on the mask, he's been wrong on other items, he's been wrong on opining on issues. He was the one that said Trump did the right thing. In fact, shutting down the travel from Europe, shutting down the travel from China, and the Democrats went after Trump on this. I mean, listen, all I'm saying is if you want to go after Trump, that's fine. Why not go after Fauci and a few others as well?
Because the buck stops at the top, doesn't it?
Oh, the buck stops at the top. I gave you the advice, but we don't want to go over the person who gave the advice. We just want to go after the person we don't like.
Come on, be honest, Ed. Dr. Fauci gave a lot of good advice as well. I mean, we're all trying to figure out this disease, even him.
True, but he also gave a lot of bad advice that wasn't even agreed upon with the Centers for Disease Control.
I think what matters right now, we know a lot, right? We know so much more than we did back in April.
Right.
And so we know enough that it's possible to open up intelligently. Look, I have 115 employees. We opened up and we did it intelligently. We have people washing their hands and wiping things down and staying apart and wearing masks inside and having as many meetings outside as we can and telecommuting. But all that together, you can have a healthy organization that goes back to work or goes back to school. We just have to use our brains.
Claire, all I know is when I play the clips on my radio show and when we look at this, and I play a lot from CNN and MSNBC. I give the liberals credit. I mean, they're very outspoken. They're more open than the conservatives. I mean, the conservatives, when you look at the recent polls, they're all too chicken to talk about their political views. But I will say this about the libs. They're honest in how they feel. I may differ with them, but I love their honesty, and I respect that. They're all talking about redoing the economy. I mean, they're gutsy enough. They want to take advantage, and they said, quote, of this crisis to make things more just and more equitable out there. And what's funny is the thing that's bringing things back around is capitalism, free markets, unlike what maybe we saw in 28 and 29 when it was some of the capitalists out there that got us into trouble with some of the financial areas. So I'm just saying that when you look at it, Walmart, all these companies paying $15 an hour, no government involvement. They're paying people extra hazard pay and things like that. They're doing the things that good workers should be able to get, more money on, and a lot of the employers as well. But when the left talks about a new equitable economy, I wonder where they want to go. Or is it just the norm, AOC, Bernie Sanders, let's give each family $8 to $10,000 a month until the pandemic ends?
I think there's a lot of different opinions on the left on that. I mean, you're trying to suggest that the left is moving really radically left on this issue and trying to be sort of socialist, but I don't think that's what we're talking about here. I think they're talking about a situation where, yeah, okay, Walmart's doing the right thing. How many businesses aren't? How many businesses, I mean...
Well, how many businesses can afford it?
That's a very good point. I mean...
And by the way, Joe Biden ran as a moderate. Lately, he's moving to the left, and it ain't because of him, it's because of Bernie. So I think that's moving pretty quick. I'll give you the last word.
I just say, no, I like this. Make Claire go forth and defend every liberal. This is wonderful.
I love
every progressive idea.
Rory Diamond, K9sforwarriors.org. You're the CEO. You're also a former federal prosecutor, worked in the W. White House, and, of course, Jacksonville City Councilman. I know you contribute to FloridaDaily.com. Claire Goforth, you get to hear her on NPR Radio. She does a real good job there. Also, she's the political reporter for the Daily.com. Don't forget, folks, shameless plug. You can catch my radio show morning statewide. We originate at the flagship station out of WBOB. You can listen to it on the smartphone or Android phones at WBOB.com. You can hear Claire, you can hear Rory, all sorts of guests. But don't forget to read all of the latest on all of the issues that we talk about. Go to FloridaDaily.com, FloridaDaily.com. This has been Florida Daily TV.